I'm Trevor Harrop and I've been a roach nut since childhood. But I'm not alone, for the roach is the favourite for millions of anglers. So this little film is an appeal to you to do something to help these splendid creatures survive long into the future. The roach, as many of you know, are a beautiful silverfish with red fins and an orange eye, and thrive in rivers and streams, lakes and canals if given the chance, and a vital part of our wildlife diversity. Large roach are a particular favourite with anglers as they're tantalisingly difficult to catch. And this difficulty is made even worse every week as many of them are eaten by cormorants. Cormorants have increased dramatically from 2,000 in the 1980s to in the region of 23,000 in 2005, with a breeding population of 2,096 pairs. And each cormorant eats at least a pound of fish every day. Roach are among the most vulnerable as they make the perfect mouthful for a large bird. Research highlights that these flocks of overwintering birds are mainly made up of the European subspecies Carbosinensis, which prefer living and hunting in fresh water. So they're not even British. These non-native birds are eating an enormous amount of our native wildlife. We felt something had to be done, and we weren't about to sit on our asses and wait and hope for somebody else to do it. So in 2011, the Avon Roach Project and friends began the call for the cormorant protection to be relaxed and the birds to be placed on the general licence, thus allowing our precious wildlife to be better protected. We backed this up with a petition of some 17,000 signatures, which we delivered to Richard Benyon, the Minister at the time, in London in February 2012, along with a few celebs, MPs and Angling Trust representatives. Martin Salter was instrumental in getting us in front of the Minister, being as he has one foot wedged firmly in the parliamentary door. As an accompaniment to our petition, we produced a science-based document outlining the facts about cormorants in this country, biodiversity in danger. This can be found on the Avon Roach Project website. If you haven't read it yet, it's well worth a read. And while it's based partly on the Hampshire Avon, the facts within it can be applied throughout the country. What we wanted to do was to dispel the misunderstanding that the reason we're seeing huge numbers of cormorants in this country is because we've overfished the seas. And while we may be guilty of this, this is not the reason we're seeing this huge number of cormorants inland in the UK. They are, as I said earlier, coming over from Europe, where their huge numbers are a serious problem there. Furthermore, the last thing we wanted was public sympathy for a species for which we were trying to get an increase in numbers allowed to be shot. Meanwhile, the Angling Trust had written to the Minister requesting that the red tape and bureaucracy associated with licensing applications be relaxed, and they'd received an undertaking from him that the licensing regime would be reviewed. The Trust then joined us in our call and our campaign to have the cormorant placed on the general licence. We've worked very closely in partnership since through the Action on Cormorants campaign, and it made perfect sense for the Angling Trust to take the lead as they have far more political clout than we do. What we wanted was simply the legal right to protect our vulnerable fish populations through a change in this woefully inadequate licensing regime. We knew we'd set the bar very high, but what we wanted to do was to rattle the cage as loudly and as violently as we possibly could, which is what we did. Richard Benyon was very receptive to our cause, as fish populations in our rivers and lakes were already in serious decline. Recent EA fish stock surveys of the Avon in 2005, 2008 and 2011 revealed a perilously low number of roach in the middle reaches of the river, a river that once abounded with them. In the government's Moran Committee review, Cormorants the Facts, it states that if fish numbers fall to a very low level, predation by birds could become a factor in the very survival of local populations. We believe this is exactly the state of play right now, so decided we had to do something more. This is where our Avon Roach Project comes in. Our film and project form the centrepiece of the campaign, as it sums up the situation perfectly.
Nearby are Trevor and Budge's spawning boards, and the roach have gathered alongside them and seem interested in this new idea. In fact, they're like bees round a honey pot, and compared to Fontanalis, they prefer the netting. Don't you just love it when a plan comes together? For not only are they attracted to the idea, they're actually spawning. Now they face a more lethal predator, the cormorant, and this poor fish has been nearly cut in half by the hooked beak. But she's a survivor and soldiers on, determined to pass on her genes. From small beginnings, the project has grown to industrial proportions, not least because the Environment Agency loaned the project some of these large tanks in which to turn fish eggs into roach. When Trev's garden is home to tens of thousands of 11-month-old roach, all perfectly formed and ready for the next stage of their young lives. Uncountable numbers of perfect Avon roach, the result of lots of determination and hard work, and for the doubters who say it won't work, it sure beats doing nothing to save the species.
For several years now, in an attempt to make a difference, we have collected spawn on our artificial spawning boards from the few surviving Avon roach. Fortunately, at the time our roach spawn in the river, the main population of cormorants are back in Europe breeding themselves, so our roach are at their safest from them at this crucial time. However, we at the Avon Roach Project do not blame the cormorant in isolation for the decline of roach. It is simply a contributory factor, along with the degradation and loss of fry and juvenile habitat, something we are also getting heavily involved in the creation of and repair of. However, with an increase in numbers of breeding pairs of cormorants in the UK, this will change. The wolf is at the door. If a group of cormorants find a group of spawning roach, they could easily wipe out an entire local population, as virtually all the adult roach in the area will be in the same place for about a week. Even worse, they will be very visible and very vulnerable, as you can see. We have raised impressive numbers of adults from the spawn in our hatchery and stews, and with tremendous help and support from the Environment Agency, we catch up the growing roach for release into the river. Some are old enough to breed themselves, for we have protected them through the most vulnerable stages of their lives. We have released tens of thousands in widely spaced stretches of the river, and there are signs that the roach are beginning to re-establish the once legendary shoals. It's been a long, hard struggle to get to this point, but the fight must go on. We may never get another opportunity to make the difference we've all been bleating on about for so long. So please support your fishery management advisors, along with the Angling Trust and even the Avon Roach Project if you feel like it. Ask yourselves, what can I do? How can I help? This is, after all, not simply something that somebody else is going to do for us. We mustn't let angling apathy become terminal. We are the custodians of this wonderful environment and all the creatures that swim in our rivers. And we have a duty to the next generation to leave it in as good, if not better, ecological state than when we inherited it. And we must all do our bit before it's too late.